Yo dudes and dudettes, your friendly neighbor JaxBlade is back, and it is truly an end of an era. My Hero Academia has just released its final chapter, and I just wanted to talk about it, because for people who've been following me for a while, they know My Hero Academia has been like one of the staples on my channel, like one of the things that just helped me grow a lot too, just with talking about it. Like I've had so many stuff like the tunes, workouts, breakdown analysis. I even released a full 10-month real life version of Deku's training program that you could follow along with real life. If you're interested in that, I'm having a sale on all three of these, like massive discount for the next week in honor of My Hero Academia ending. But yeah, let's just have a nice talk about the finale. Because the lead up to the ending, there was a lot of hit and misses in the arc for me, though I will say this, when it got to the last bit with All For One Shigaraki versus Deku and everyone helping him, they need to bring back You Say Run for the anime. They really need to do that, because reading that chapter just had me in my seat like, let's go boys! But after that battle concluded, there was a little bit, I guess, spoilers. I'm literally talking about the finale, yeah, spoilers. The whole thing of Deku losing his power, like losing One For All, and like All Might, and now he can only use like little embers of it and stuff like that till it gradually whittles away. I thought that was an interesting choice, just because of like at the very beginning of like, oh, this is how I became the greatest hero, and I could see like how they subverted the expectations, because you sort of expect Deku to just be like, you know, this Superman character at the very end of the series, and then have like a wife and kids and stuff like that, and we're gonna talk about a certain thing in a second, but like, I guess I could see why he went that way, and I can understand like the message of just like, oh yeah, he can still be a hero even if he doesn't have powers. And yeah, I guess let's just talk about the final chapter, or no, the second to last chapter. Now this is something I did notice. So the second to last chapter is of Deku and Uraraka, and Uraraka's just completely broken up about the whole Toga situation and how she feels like she failed in all this regard, and Deku comes and comforts her, and then it's a very sweet, wholesome moment where it's just like, hey, like, you know, it's great, because like the entire series at this point, I think it's pretty fair to say, obvious to say, that they've been sort of building up like, oh, Deku and Uraraka are going to be like, you know, Naruto and Hinata, or Ichigo and Orihime. For people out there who only watch the Bleach anime, they sort of like tried to make it into Ichigo and Rukia, but if you read the Bleach manga, it's like, oh, they're trying to lay it up to Orihime and Ichigo, so it makes more sense why they got together at the end of it. But like, you know, I digress. Back to My Hero Academia. There's this whole thing where it's like, okay, so this is going to be the confession scene. This is going to be one of those situations where they get together and then like, you know, years later, oh, hey, babe, and stuff like that. She's working, I'm doing this. But then they have the time skip, and it shows that while Deku is like, you know, an adult and he's a great teacher and he's helping inspiring the new generation, there are these like, you know, all his friends are like going out and he hasn't seen them for a long period of time. And even though we see Uraraka as an adult and stuff like that, and she's still working with like, you know, fellow classmates as heroes, and she seems to be wearing Deku's mask, which is like a cool little thing too. It's like, oh, okay, I see you, like Deku wearing that stuff. But it felt very open-ended in a way of like, oh, they could get together, but we're not gonna cement it or something like that. And the reason I bring that up as being curious to me is I remember hearing this thing a long time ago that Horikoshi, now I don't want to say this as like fact, I only heard it as a rumor or something like that, that Horikoshi got threats because of the relationship between like Deku and Uraraka, because he said something about Deku being straight. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't want to pretend like it is or anything like that. I just know the internet is a hyperbolic place. All right, but I've heard him get death threats over like a character's name. I've heard him being insulted about stuff like that. I do not know if that is true or not, so I don't want to be like talking to my ass on the subject or something like that. But I do know he has been insulted so many times of like, oh, this is like, I have an issue with this sort of thing, which I think is just kind of messed up. So I really hope there was not an outside influence of like, oh, we don't want Deku to be with whatever, so you can just leave it open-ended, he gets with whoever, and that affected his writing style. Because I think that would just be like absolute like just bullshit in the long run of just like, okay, if a writer has a very creative way of like how they're telling their story and you're like, oh no, well, I don't like this, and then you like, you try to pull some like misery shit from like, you know, Stephen King and stuff like that, that is never a good thing. That is never ever a good thing, and I don't stand for it at all. And I really, really, really hope that was not the case here. Okay, because it did feel like the entire thing. And even like when you read like the early chapters of My Hero Academia, he was very much like, oh yeah, I have a way of like getting them together, and then like, you know, you see little things like that, and I was like, okay, oh, cool, that's curious, that's very cool, I like how they're like, you know, progressing this sort of relationship. And she even like said like multiple times, no, I'm in love and all this other stuff. And so like I was wondering how they do it, but they just decided not to go that route and played it very safe in the finale, where it's just like, hey, they're all heroes, Deku's his own person, they're doing this, they're all doing this sort of thing. And it's like, oh, okay, man, okay, I get it. Though this sort of makes me wish that like when the anime gets to like the finale part, they pull what Naruto Shippuden's anime did, where they're able to expand upon a bunch of stuff that they just did not do in the Naruto manga. Because when the Naruto manga was like, okay, we're having this battle with Sasuke, and then we're having a flash forward, and this is what's happening, all right? But with the anime, they were like, okay, no, we're getting Naruto the last, and we're also getting like, you know, these special chapters before Naruto gets married in the very last episode and stuff like that. So those were all anime only specials that I think greatly enhanced the series, and I was just like, yo man, this is hitting. This is actually hitting really well. But I hope they can do that with My Hero Academia, just like go into the further lives of them as like, you know, adults or something like that, or what's going on with them, how everyone's functioning, because it felt very rushed. That was the issue I had. Like, it felt like the last chapter, it sort of felt like the last couple chapters, they were sort of like, you know, okay, come on, wrap this up, do what you gotta do. And I feel like it sort of suffered in that regard, in my personal opinion. Like, I didn't hate the chapter at all. I just thought it was like, eh. And like, that's the best way to put it. Literally, eh, okay, like that's it. That's how I felt when reading this chapter. It wasn't anything that like blew my mind, because I know the internet is hyperbolic, and you'll have people like, the worst dog shit fucking ending I've ever seen, man. This is fucking trash, man. Worst ending ever, bruh. I fucking hate this dog shit. But then on the opposite end, you have people like, My Hero Academia just gave us, without a doubt, one of the best endings I've ever seen in a fictional series. It is just an absolute masterpiece. The subversion of what they were able to do, and then the lesson of what they were able to accomplish. This is truly one of the best endings I've ever seen in my life. And it ain't all that now. Because I will say this is making me look at other anime endings that I just consider like great. And I think the pinnacle of, you know, phenomenal anime endings is something that majority of people agree with, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where it's just like, that right there is just like the quintessential ending, because like we follow Ed and Alphonse through so much pain and death and sadness, and then just like epicness too, and then we get to this conclusion, and this conclusion is so very satisfying, okay? And it's a very similar situation, because Ed loses his powers, his alchemy and stuff like that, and has to learn to live without that, but he's still able to, and there's still so much stuff going on in the world, he's still able to help and like, you know, build a family with Winry and all this other stuff, and it's just so satisfying. When you leave that series, you feel so good. Because I understand if he didn't want like a standard predictable ending in that regard, where it's just like, okay, Deku is like the Superman of this world, all right, the absolute pinnacle, and then Uravity is his wife, and then they have kids, and then they have like an Incredibles picture, and then the chapter ends with them all just like going off together or something like that. Like, it would be incredibly satisfying, but like, you know, a lot of people are very focused on trying to like, you know, subvert expectations in that regard, so it's not like the same thing. However, there are some times where I personally, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, I don't know if like predictable is necessarily bad at times, all right, you know what I mean? I feel like that would just be satisfying to the majority of people, where they would just be like, oh yeah, you know, pretty chill, like, you know, predictable, but I enjoyed it. Though, of course, you're always gonna have the toxic fans, like the terminally online shippers, the terminally online power scalers who all need to go touch grass and stuff like that. But like, something I also think to keep in consideration with this too is something I just watched recently, is a lot of people will see a lot of negativity online, and they think that dictates how the majority of the planet feels about something, when it's like, no, there's like 8 billion plus people on the planet. There's only like around 200 million people on Twitter, or like that. Like, again, it's a bit, both are big numbers, but one is astronomically big. And someone was talking about how like, oh, I always see this show get crapped on the internet, but then when I'm at my job, all my coworkers are talking positively about the job, because again, not everyone is on the internet 24/7. But on a more positive note, because he left it so open, he can easily revisit in the future, or like tell the team, hey, yeah, you can like use some anime only episodes here because I didn't have time when I was doing this. I felt very stressed. I couldn't work on it. Hey, you can do some movies here. Like I have some concepts here or something like that if you want to, like, you know, go in further depth with certain things. So he's good in that regard. Hell, like, there have been endings in the past where like they were sort of just like, I didn't feel that, and then the creator came back and then like made a better ending, quote unquote, where it was like, okay, that satisfied a lot more people. Perfect example of this, Samurai Jack. A lot of people did not like the initial ending of Samurai Jack, and then they made this video game, and the video game fixed the ending to Samurai Jack with just one simple scene, and then everyone was just like, okay, we're cool now, we're cool now. Like, it was that simple. So he is not in a regard of like, oh, he completely trashed the series or anything like that. It can easily be like modified or fixed in the future, but I digress. It's just whatever he was going through, though I do really feel like he somehow got rushed, and I also really hope that there was no outside influence to him which made him go like, I'm fearful if I do this that I'll get a backlash for this. So at the end of the day, what did y'all think if you've read the My Hero Academia manga finale? Again, like if you're someone who's anime only, I don't know why you're here. I guess you're just interested in spoilers, stuff like that. But like, let me know in the comments down below and let's get a discussion going. If you made it this far in the video, type Deku Gravity down below. It shows me who watched all the way to the end. And again, like if you're interested in like the Deku training program, 10 months, all that stuff, I have all of these on discount right now in the pinned comment. So check them out. I'm doing it for the next week just because I wanted to, like, you know, get people in the hero training mood like Horikoshi got us all to. Also, I got 2 more videos incoming. Like, I just wanted to talk about this just because my hero's been such a big part of my life, and so y'all can look forward to that. Also, on my Patreon, I completely revamped some rewards because for some reason they made me an 18+ Patreon and they will not let me change it back. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna lean into that. So I'm gonna review like that Elf's on Diet thing in full on there. So people, go check out my Patreon if you will. Always support. I always appreciate it. But remember, like I always say, keep calm, booyah on, and don't forget Momentai. And thank you, Horikoshi, for inspiring so many of us to be heroes as well. Oh,